say that there's a part of them in every character, and I'm wondering where you see yourself. Like when you look at a character you've written, who do you think you're most like? And like for example, Eric. What parts of Eric are you?
Well, there is a little bit of me, I think, in every character, which should, kind of make you wonder about me. Everyone says, "Oh, you're so nice, you're so sweet," and I'm going, "Not really." Yeah, there is a little bit, or I couldn't write him, I guess. Of course, he's, just a big old, bold, brawny guy who is intensely political. And with the books, a lot of romance readers lose sight of the intensely political side of that character and go for the big and brawny, sweep me off my feet, you brawny Viking thing, and they get pretty upset with me when I say, he's a political guy. He's been a vampire for 1,000 years, and that's not because he lets himself get swept off his feet. He's a player. But there is a little touch, I think, of me in all my characters.
Probably my favorite Sookie Stackhouse piece of fiction of any kind was Small Town Wedding.
Oh, thank you.
I was wondering what the inspiration for that piece was. It felt to me like it had shades of sort of Westboro Baptist Church Fred Phelps going on, as well as some of the gay rights issues. But that one to me had the most emotional impact, so I was curious about it.
Thank you. I think of the Sookie short stories, and this was really almost a novella length. I think that was probably the best one I wrote. It had a lot of what was happening in the news when I wrote it. And I thought the werewolves kind of got away with their big revelation. Here we are, we're out and we're proud. But the werewolves and the shapeshifters got a much bigger reaction from people. And my reasoning behind this, that wasn't at random. I was thinking, wouldn't you be upset if you found out that your next door neighbor had been concealing their true nature from you your whole life, and that they actually turned into a panther once a month and kill your chickens or whatever? It seemed to me like the betrayal would be more personal because werewolves are grittier. They live amongst us and they're indistinguishable from us. And it seemed to me like the reaction would be much stronger. That instead of the big reaction being against the vampires, but there would be, but werewolves are much more attackable than vampires. So that's kind of the way that worked out in my head. And I had no idea how that story was going to end until I got to it. I was so glad to think of an ending for it. I thought, this story has to end sometimes. How am I going to do that? But it worked out really well with the moment of reconciliation.
How much research do you do into all of the various places and paranormal things that you might do? Do you do much research in that, or you just let yourself go?
Well, I do some research. If real things are in the book, like in the last book, there was a male stripper. Well, I talked to a male stripper, and that was just totally weird. But I wanted to get that right. There's so much in my books that's fantastic and not realistic. I can't go talk to a vampire and say, what's it really like? Or, a werewolf. Though people who told me they are have actually approached me. But when there's something realistic in the books, I try to make that real because I'm trying to anchor the fantastic in the real.
Absolutely. I see, like, that was really the right answer. I love that answer. Other questions here, people before?
Can you talk a little bit about rewriting, and since you don't outline or you don't often know the ending ahead of time, so do you have to go back and?
Oh, I do. Rewriting is the most important part. The first draft is usually pretty bad, but it's in rewrites that I do what I call decorating the book. I put in all the rich stuff, the descriptive stuff, the sharpest stuff, It's not just the plot, it's the complete experience of the book when I do rewrites. And of course I have to do a lot of revisions since I'm always thinking of new things. I have to go back and reinsert them. It makes for very confusing drafts that I send my editor sometimes. She'll go, "Who's this?" I'm going, "Oh, I'm sorry, I discarded them. I left in one reference. I'm so sorry." So it requires, I do a lot of rewriting.
And you've had the same editor for these books the whole time?
No, I had John Morgan for the
Oh,
first
okay.
3, and now I have Ginger Buchanan.
Okay, so she's been those, so there are how many books there are?
13, yeah.
So does she have much input with you? Do you talk a lot about the books? Or?
There are issues. Ginger is a renowned editor, a well-known editor. Ginger is also a little prissier than I am. So every now and then she'll have an issue that I regard as a non-issue, and we'll discuss it, but it's always very cordial.
Right. We had a prissy issue just the other day with that little serial novel editor.
Yeah.
That's insane, right?
Yeah.
Charlaine is contributing to a serial novel we're putting together, and it went right by me. But this editor found something that she thought that was a little offensive. It was like, really? Anyway.
That's me.
Yeah. Yes.
What can I say?
What advice would you give for aspiring authors?
Don't quit your day job. Aspiring writers. Well, you have to really like your own company. You have to really like being in a room by yourself for hours and hours. Amazingly, that's where most people fall by the wayside. They just can't do that. And I think you have to have a lot of perseverance. You have to know when to quit, I think. But I couldn't say when that is. I've had amazing luck in my career, but I've seen people who beat their heads against the wall for 20 years, and I don't know what to say to people who've been doing that. Maybe there comes a point where you have to say, I'm not going to succeed at this, but I don't ever want to be the one to tell someone that. Gosh knows I never expected to get where I am now. It's just amazing to me. Some days I wake up and I think, damn, you know, this is incredible. This is what every writer wants, and I never thought I would have all this. It's
When
great.
you say, Charlaine, that to know when to quit, would you feel that you would have quit if you had not had success at a certain point?
No, I never would have.
See?
I never would have.
So scratch that last part.
Yeah, scratch it.
We're not going to believe that because yeah, right? Oh, you want to ask another? Sure, go ahead. Why not?
When you're trying to get just a feeling for an individual character, you write down, these are the traits that I want people to feel when they're reading about this character. And how do you get like a voice for individual characters while you're writing them?
Okay, every character in your book has to work. Nobody's there for a free ride. They have to be the character they need to be to fill that function. If your character, if you've got to have a garage mechanic, they have got to be a garage mechanic and they have to move the story forward. So what does your garage mechanic have to do? Does he have to give an important piece of information? Does he have to loosen an important bolt on the character's car? How is he moving the story forward? And his character will be built around that. I often tell people if you want a device for getting to know a character, if it's a woman, dump her purse out. Not literally, but mentally, dump her purse out. What is in that purse? If you have a guy empty his pockets, what's in those pockets? What's in his glove compartment? And by those things, you construct the character and you know about them. You have to decide what would they read if they read. What music would they listen to if they listened to music? What shows on television would they watch? And then that's how you construct the little things that make your character live. Their strengths and their weaknesses. But most of all, what makes them work in your book.
Right. I think we always say that about nobody can just be in there as a kind of decoration. They have to have a function. They have to be interesting if they're going to be on the page. And, you know, were there more questions?
Yes.
I was curious, have you ever thought of writing from like a multiple person point of view? Even if you use first person for one, maybe third person for another.
My next series is going to be multiple points of view, all third person. So. And some of them are guys. I've never done guys before.
And what about present tense?
You know, I wrote, there are certain passages that do better in present tense. I usually find present tense massively irritating. There are a few books I've read, it really worked. It was in the present tense all the way through, and it works. But most often I find it makes me set my teeth on edge. So I would say sparing use of the present tense.
It's also not so known in the crime fiction world genre, the continuous present tense.
Right.
You know, dare we say it's a more literary device. You know,
And if you want to
sense.
write romance, I'm sorry, I just
No.
talked right over you.
Please,
I'm
I
so
like
sorry.
that. You know?
It's one of my worst habits. If you're going to write romance, it can't be first person. That is a universal rule in romance. And I do not do it can't be in first person.
Can I ask why? I just
Oh, I know, but I just know that's a rule that my romance writing friends tell me. And do not despise romance. That is a multi-gazillion-dollar industry with fans who just buy. You know, today it's hard to find people who still buy books. They buy book after book after book after. If you ever go to Romantic Times, which will just make you totally crazy, you'll feel like you're on another planet, like going to the Dallas Gun Show. But if you go to Romantic Times, when they have a mass signing with like 250 authors in there, more or less, it's like being in the OK Corral. And people come in with suitcases, and fill it full of books. They buy them. And it's just an amazing industry, but it's got rules. And if you want to write romance, you've got to follow those rules.
But you, of course, broke so many rules. So, maybe you can break that. You don't
If I
want
was
to.
going to write conventional romance, no. And most of the flack I get is from conventional romance readers who expect the book to end like a conventional romance. That's why I'm not touring with the last book.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I just thought, why put myself through that? I'm just not going to do it.
Now, if there's a last question, we'll take that. Okay,
Just
Suzanne?
on any feelings about ebooks versus print books, you know, where the industry's going, how does that affect you as a writer?
Well, it affects me tremendously. And you know, it doesn't really make any difference how I feel about it. It's happened. Ebooks are here. A lot of people are going direct to ebook. Not just people who've written, you know, the worst novel ever, but people who have written really excellent books. Well-known writers are going directly to ebook for some things. And it is cutting into the sales of hardbacks tremendously, obviously. So I don't know how long the regular hardback market will last. I also know that since people aren't buying hardbacks, I have smaller signings than I used to. And I'm going, at first I thought, oh my God, my sales are down. They're not, but they've moved to ebooks and people don't bring in their Kindles and Nooks to get them signed. Though I have signed them. You know, and we'll do that. I will sign anything but body parts.
Here's what I have to say. You should come up here and buy this relic, this thing called a book. Because they may not exist, and you will have a Sookie Stackhouse or another one of Charlaine's books with her signature in it, personalized to you when there are no more books left in your book. And it'll be really something to have. And you should not, and I'm always encouraging people to buy books. I like books, you know. I like them in all forms, and, you know, so.
Yeah.
So please do come up. Charlene's going to be here. And the Crime Fiction Academy people, we're going to kidnap Charlaine for a little bit, for little drinks, just across the hall, so don't run away. But please come get a book. And thank you so
Sure,
much.
glad to do it.